Back to the Sedona International Film Festival 26. This is the live stream in the media room. We're proud and honored to be here representing the Sedona International Film Festival. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Sedona Advertising Agency, Broadcast Rentals, and of course the lovely Sedona Rouge for housing us this week. And I have another brilliant filmmaker. She's an Academy Award winner. She's a multiple award winner. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Wade, and I'm the co-director of Grit.
So we'll get into this movie in a second. The trailer is incredibly powerful, something that I didn't know anything about. But let's start with something joyful.
Yes.
How's Sedona treating you?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's rare that you can go to a festival that, first of all, is in such a beautiful part of the country. Mm-hmm. Secondly, is so beautifully programmed. They're fantastic features here, really fantastic documentaries and features. And then third, on your time off, you can do these amazing hikes, which I've been doing as well.
Oh,
so it's great. It's great.
Yeah, Sedona, we call it the Filmmakers Festival.
Yeah.
We like to tell people that because we do like to treat our filmmakers the best. It's about you.
It's fantastic.
Coming here, sharing what you do. Okay, let's get into this because it's beautifully shot. It's an incredible story that I don't think most people have ever even heard of. Let's watch the trailer.
Terjadi tsunami lumpur. Kami lari menyelamatkan diri. Kejadian lumpur ini berdampak pada semua orang yang saya kenal. Ibu saya mengatakan, kita akan terus mendesak Lapindo untuk mengembalikan apa yang sudah hilang sampai lumpur berhenti keluar.
Selesai, nggak ada tanggung jawab selain saham barangkali, ya kan? Dinyatakan Mahkamah Agung tidak bersalah.
Kalian adalah generasi ke depan. Bahwa kita akan menjadi bangsa yang berkualitas.
Saya minta tolong sekali, biar teman-teman bisa datang. Di mana suaramu? Jangan diam. Kemenangan yang kalian impikan.
Where to even begin? Do you still get emotional when you watch the trailer?
I mean, it definitely takes me back. It took 6 years to make this film. It was a difficult film to raise money for, and it was one of those films where we needed to do it very slowly over time as the mud continued to rise. And 14 years later, the mud continues to explode every moment of every day. It's rising. It will explode at least for another 10 years.
And I know it's a pipeline. What is the cause? And I mean,
a natural gas drilling company hit an underground pocket of mud. It was a drill that was not protected, and because it was not protected in a proper way, it did not have a casement on it. It hit this underground pocket of mud, which just rushed to the surface, and it instantly killed just 16 people. But what happened was it just went into the, I mean, it's massive. It went into the sky. It barreled into 16 villages. 16 villages went 60 feet under the mud. And it is twice the size of, here's a New York reference, of Central Park. It's just, when you stand on it, it's like standing on the moon. It's just for miles and miles and miles. All you can see is this sort of cracked lunar moonscape.
How did this story come to you? I mean, I've never heard of this. I know you asked your audience yesterday.
Yeah, nobody in the audience yesterday had heard of it. And it's one of the reasons I really wanted to make the film. The CEO of the drilling company, who you see in the trailer, he owns 4 out of the 5 media conglomerates in Indonesia. And Indonesia is a giant country, as you know. There are 12,000 islands. It stretches from the equivalent of London to Baghdad. There are almost 300 million people in Indonesia. So it's not just, people think Bali,
right,
but it's just this vast, giant country. And even inside of the country, the reporting and how the reporting, if it was even reported, how the message was being controlled was very much being controlled by corporate interests. So it really needed an international group of filmmakers. Obviously, I'm American, but I partnered with Indonesians, and my co-director is fluent in Indonesian, in the language called Bahasa, and grew up partially in Indonesia. And we also edited it in Denmark. So it was really this sort of international effort over 6 years of raising the money. I'd heard about it in 2012 when I was over working on something else in Indonesia. And somebody said, if you want to think about your next documentary, you should think about the Lapindo mud flow. And I said, what? And they tried to describe it to me, because it's visually, you can't even sort of understand it. And so I went to the mud site with some of my crew members. I was there for another project. And I said, guys, can we stay a few extra days and just capture this and maybe put together a fundraising trailer? So that's how it started. It took, though, many years in order to tell the story, because the victims, and there's 60,000 displaced people, fought for a decade to get any kind of recognition or compensation.
So you showed yesterday, you screened yesterday.
Yes.
I have so many questions. There's a lot of things popping in my head. You screened yesterday. What was the audience feedback on this?
Well, first of all, the audience, nobody, I'd asked the audience, had anybody ever heard of it, and they just hadn't. So it's an interesting thing just to think on sort of a bigger level, like who tells what stories and what angle of what story is told, right? Because there's so many stories that are not getting out there. And that was a driving force for me, a motivator for me to make this. But secondly, there are parallels. There are many other eco-disasters around the world. Some of them obviously have happened in and around our shores and in our country. And this is also a warning tale of what can happen.
Correct. Was the feedback positive for you?
It was great.
Yesterday?
It was such a great environmental discussion.
Yes.
It was a great audience.
Say this audience, this is right up their alley. We're incredibly invested in that as a community. What do you want people to take away from this? What's your end game on this film?
The biggest thing is just for people to know about this, because this is something now, as I said, we're 14 years in. We have at least another decade of this mud exploding. Scientists around the world have tried everything with groups of activists and other scientists and people on the ground to try to stop this. I mean, everything has been tried, and it's almost like a monster coming from the center of the earth that is just swallowing more and more land. The locals there have built up these levees, but they live in the shadow of these levees. But the levees break, and the levees often can break or have leaks during monsoon season. So that's an issue. The other problem for these survivors is that if your home was instantly covered in mud and you didn't run out with your piece of paper that said that you lived there, you didn't get any compensation. So the majority of survivors, because it's 60 feet under the mud, they can't prove it. They haven't been able to get any compensation. And then the real kicker is that the drilling company just signed a 20-year contract to do more drilling in that area. So it's awareness about drilling. It's awareness about what's happening on the outside of the U.S.
Yes.
And just to get the awareness out, I think, is important. The other thing, honestly, that I felt was really important is this is the 4th largest democracy in the world, and it is the largest Muslim population in the world. And we were women making this film, and we highlighted a young female activist. She's sort of like an Indonesian Greta Thunberg, and her mother is very much in the film as an activist. And I felt really privileged, especially in this very sort of polarizing time. I felt very privileged and sort of responsible to tell a story of a Muslim girl in a Muslim country where democracy is at action, right? It is a large democracy. There's a big presidential election that happens in this film, and that you see women activists and you see women having agency, because it is this very large and pluralistic country, and it's a different look at a Muslim country, the largest in the world, that you often see with mainstream media. And I felt a responsibility to that so that we could find more ways to be similar as opposed to being different.
And what's the website that they can follow?
It's gritdocumentary.com.
Okay.
And we also have Facebook and Instagram
And all under Grit Documentary.
gritdocumentary.com.
Okay, so follow this, ladies and gentlemen. I really feel like this is one of those stories that's going to continue being told in other countries in the world, and we appreciate you making it so beautiful. There's so many things to say about it. It's a pretty film, even though it's a very sad subject. And sometimes that juxtaposition is what we need.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I said to the audience yesterday, like, you know, I'm asking you to watch a feature documentary about mud in subtitles, so it better be spectacularly beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So congratulations on that. I think you achieved that. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have another filmmaker in the seat right after this. Please follow us with hashtag Sedona Film Fest 26 and Sedona Film Fest 2020.